The young homeless woman sat on the cold pavement outside a closed grocery store, her thin jacket doing almost nothing to shield her from the sharp evening breeze that slipped beneath the fabric and chilled her skin. She tucked her chin into her chest, trying to make herself smaller as the streetlights buzzed above her, flickering slightly every few seconds. Her fingers were stiff from the cold, and she rubbed them together slowly, watching people pass by with hurried steps, their eyes fixed on their phones or the ground, never on her. She had grown used to that invisible feeling, the way the world seemed to look through her instead of at her, like she was part of the background and not a living person fighting to survive one more day. Her stomach ached from hunger, but she tried not to think about it, focusing instead on the rhythmic sounds of traffic and distant chatter that kept her grounded. As she sat there, she didn't notice the small pair of shoes that had stopped right in front of her until the child's shadow blocked the dim light spilling from the store's sign. She slowly lifted her head, expecting to see a rushed adult about to tell her to move, but instead her gaze met the big, innocent eyes of a little girl holding a melting ice cream cone that dripped down her fingers. The child didn't look scared or unsure, she looked concerned, studying the woman's face as if she could see right through the worn-out smile she tried to offer. The homeless woman's heart squeezed painfully at the sight of someone so young standing so close, and she braced herself for the girl's parent to pull her away, but no one came. The girl took a tiny step forward, tilting her head with curiosity and empathy far beyond her age. Then, with the softest voice the woman had heard in years, the girl whispered, "I think you need a hug, can I hug you?" And the words struck the woman so deeply she felt her throat tighten, tears she didn't want to show threatening to rise as she stared at the little girl in stunned silence. Before the woman could even gather enough strength to answer, the little girl stepped forward and wrapped her tiny arms around her, pressing her warm cheek firmly against the woman's cold shoulder. The suddenness of the gesture left the woman frozen in place, her breath catching in her chest as she struggled to understand how something so simple could feel so overwhelming. She wasn't used to being touched with kindness. Most days, people avoided coming near her, afraid, uncomfortable, or simply indifferent. But this child held her as if she mattered, as if she wasn't a stranger sitting on a dirty sidewalk but someone worthy of tenderness. The girl's arms were so small, yet the comfort they carried felt bigger than anything the woman had received in years, and the warmth of the little body pressed against her felt like a reminder of the humanity she thought the world had forgotten. People walking by slowed their steps, some stealing curious glances, others softening their expressions as they witnessed the unexpected moment. Still, the girl didn't loosen her hold, her tiny fingers gently bunching the woman's jacket as if trying to keep her together. The woman finally lifted her trembling hands, hesitating before letting them rest on the girl's back. The contact broke something inside her in the gentlest way, and tears slid down her cheeks without her permission, falling silently into the girl's hair. She hadn't cried like that in years, not because she didn't want to, but because she had never felt safe enough to let herself break. The girl held her tightly, whispering little soothing sounds with the innocence of someone who believed hugs could mend anything. A few steps behind them, the girl's father watched quietly, his eyes softening. With every passing second, he didn't interrupt, didn't rush his daughter, simply stood there with a look that said he understood that something important was happening, something his daughter could sense before anyone else. The woman leaned into the embrace, feeling, for the first time in a long time, that she wasn't completely alone in the world. The little girl slowly loosened her hug and pulled back just enough to look into the woman's face, still holding her hands as if afraid she might disappear if she let go. Her small fingers were warm against the woman's cold, trembling ones, and she tilted her head with the same gentle curiosity she had shown from the beginning. She asked softly if the woman had eaten anything today, her voice carrying genuine concern rather than pity. The woman opened her mouth to respond, but her voice wavered and cracked under the weight of the truth she hadn't spoken aloud in days. Instead of trying again, she simply shook her head, embarrassed and vulnerable in a way she couldn't hide. The little girl didn't flinch, didn't look shocked or worried, she simply nodded with the calm certainty of a child who believed every problem had a solution. Without hesitating for even a second, the girl turned to her father and tugged on his sleeve, whispering urgently while pointing back at the woman. The father listened quietly, his brows softening with understanding before he headed toward a nearby food stall. Meanwhile, the girl hurried back to the woman, sitting right beside her on the cold pavement as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her legs swung back and forth freely, her ice cream now forgotten and dripping onto the concrete. She kept smiling at the woman, making small attempts at conversation, telling her that sometimes when she felt sad, her mom would make her warm soup and tuck her in with extra blankets, and she wished she could do the same now. A few minutes later, the father returned with a warm, fragrant bag of food. The girl took it with both hands, almost stumbling under its weight, then placed it carefully on the woman's lap with the pride of someone offering a priceless treasure. The woman stared at the bag in disbelief, feeling her eyes burn again as the aroma of freshly cooked rice and chicken rose into the air, reminding her just how long it had been since she'd had anything warm. She tried to say thank you, but the words tangled in her throat as emotions surged too fast to contain. The girl simply nudged her arm lightly, as if telling her it was okay, and continued swinging her feet, sharing little stories about her toys and her school, acting as though sitting beside a homeless woman in the middle of a busy street was the most normal and comfortable place she could possibly be. The father approached slowly, lowering himself to a crouch beside the woman and his daughter, careful not to startle her. His voice was calm and steady as he asked if she had anywhere safe to stay that night. The woman hesitated, her fingers tightening around the warm food bag resting in her lap. Admitting the truth felt heavy, almost shameful, but the kindness she had already received gave her just enough courage to answer. She quietly explained that she usually found corners or empty doorways to sleep in, places where the wind couldn't reach her as easily. The father listened without judgment, nodding with gentle understanding instead of the discomfort she often saw in others. His eyes held no pity, only concern, as he told her about a nearby shelter they frequently donated to and offered to help her contact them if she was willing. The woman glanced at the little girl, who was still holding her hand tightly, her small fingers gripping with so much trust and warmth that the woman felt a lump rise in her throat again. The girl looked up at her father with wide, earnest eyes and immediately insisted they stay with the woman until the shelter staff arrived. The father smiled softly, agreeing without hesitation, then pulled out his phone to make the call. While he spoke, the little girl leaned against the woman's arm, humming quietly to herself as if trying to fill the silence with comfort. Each small gesture made the woman's heart ache with a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years, belonging, even if temporary. Minutes later, the shelter coordinator confirmed they would come soon, and the father put away his phone before taking off his own scarf and gently offering it to the woman. She tried to refuse, shaking her head, but he insisted with a kind smile, saying she looked cold and that he had more at home. The woman reluctantly accepted, wrapping the soft fabric around her neck, feeling warmth seep into her skin and deeper into her chest. The little girl rested her head lightly on the woman's shoulder, her presence soothing in a way words could never replicate. As they waited together on the pavement, with the noise of the city swirling around them, the woman realized she didn't feel invisible.